you, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are. On behalf of all of us at Celigo, I'd like to thank you for taking the time today to join us for our platform update. My name is Dave Wallen. I'm the Director of Platform Product Marketing here at Celigo, and I am pleased to introduce you to our main presenter right below me, Tyler Lamparter. Now, what's great about having Tyler here is while he is currently a principal product manager at Celigo, he started with us as a consultant, and prior to that, he was a customer and a Celigo power user. How are you doing today, Tyler?
I'm doing pretty great, Dave. How are you?
Doing well. So we have a full, exciting agenda and some great demos for all of you today. But before we get started, a couple of quick housekeeping items. For those of you that attended these webinars in the past, I think you probably can see that we are using a new platform with a different interface. So there is an attendee engagement bar on the right side of your screen. And here you can access the session group chat. You could submit questions through the Q&A, and you can view and download other resources that we've attached. If you want to ask questions about the content, please use the Q&A section and not the session chat. But we do encourage you to use the session chat throughout the webinar to drop comments, share your thoughts with your fellow attendees. At the end of the seminar, there will be a survey when we'd really like you to take some time to do that and share your feedback. But before we get into the meat of the webinar, I've got an exciting announcement. Tyler, here we go. Celigo has been named a visionary in the 2024 Gartner Magic Quadrant for iPaaS. And so, first of all, big thanks to all of you out there, not just for being great customers and partners, but because you've engaged with us, you've stretched the platform and found new ways to use it. You've shared your ideas and feedback with us. This is really the most important factor in us achieving this designation. And this is great news for you as well, right? This is validation from Gartner that you have made a great investment in technology. We were recognized for both a customer-centric approach and the ability to drive innovative integration solutions that are future-proof technology, that we've incorporated AI in a way that will help you to drive your business forward today and tomorrow. And in the webinar resources, you can see a link to a landing page with additional information if you want to learn more. But once again, thanks to all of you for being the best customers and partners in the world. And with that, on with the actual webinar. So we're going to take a look at today's agenda. And our goal here is not to repeat everything that you get in the release notes, but we want to provide some color and depth around the features and updates that we think will have the most impact for you. So we're going to start with a look at some of the new app connectors, as well as some new features to help you build your own connections. We'll look at the latest AI enhancements. Followed by that, we'll look at what's new in Flow Builder, including Transformation 2.0. We'll update you on improvements to error management. And we'll wrap up with a look at additional resources to see where you can learn more about this release, prior releases, and so much more. And finally, everybody's favorite part of these is the platform updates. For part of the platform updates, the Q&A. So let's get started with new endpoints, connectivity. So we've released a significant number of endpoints for customers that are for important endpoints for our e-commerce customers, including TikTok Shop. Additionally, we've released a number of endpoints for customers. Next slide. Did we lose a slide?
Sorry about that.
Sorry about for customers with HR related use cases. And you can see again the detail on all of this and much more in the release notes. And Tyler, you've got some interesting new connectivity features to show us, right?
Yep. So we've got a pretty large one here that we released later last year, which is universal connector for JDBC on-prem. So we started releasing JDBC connectors earlier last year, starting off with NetSuite's Suite Analytics connector. But we wanted to bring more of a universal generic approach so that you could essentially bring any of your on-prem systems into Celigo. So what we have is a generic on-prem JDBC connector, right? You bring your own jar files, your own drivers, and install our on-prem agent that we've had for years onto your system, use those drivers to connect to it, use Celigo to connect to it, and then you can start pulling data and pushing data to your on-prem system. We've used this for SQL Server, MySQL. We've even had some customers connect to Oracle, Oracle version 11 database, which was deprecated like, I don't know, 15 years ago at this point. So we've had some interesting use cases come up, especially for connecting to those legacy systems for users. Additionally, if you guys are familiar with our data warehousing database connectors, we've started rolling out kind of a universal approach to these database connectors. Historically, we've had this like insert and update and insert or update functionality, but we've migrated to allow users to simply like map all their fields in. So we've added that enhancement to Postgres connector, where you can use the new bulk insert option, select the table from the drop-down list. So we will actually go, grab the tables from your destination, pull them in just so you can easily select it. Once you select that table, then you can just use the mapper functionality that you're used to. So you can map all those fields coming from your source and then land it into your Postgres table. So this brings Postgres in line with our other connectors like Snowflake, SQL Server, and BigQuery, and some of the others. And then lastly, on connectors, we've enhanced the search for connectors. So a lot of endpoints, right, they might house several different connectors underneath one API umbrella. A good example here is like Walmart. So Walmart I think we had 3 different regions that were listed, but now you've got Walmart with its 3 regions listed underneath Walmart, but you can still search for it by searching for the region. Another good example is like Facebook and Instagram and Meta. They're all underneath Meta now. But if you search for it, you can still find that Facebook is under Meta. So it's just some enhanced search capabilities to find the connectors that you're looking for. I'll pass it back to you guys.
Well, actually, yes. So let's talk about AI. Our objective with AI is simply to make it easier for technical and non-technical users to next slide, Tyler. Technical and non-technical users to to create and manage integrations. We want to accelerate time to value on the create side and minimize the time you spend on troubleshooting and resolving errors in runtime. Top analysts, including those from Gartner and Forrester, have called out that we are unique as an iPaaS that leverages AI in these runtime operations to automatically identify and resolve data and API errors. And same time, offering a AI guided creation capabilities. So, we're going to cover some of those things here. We're going to save error management for later because that's such a big part of what we do. So, Tyler, what are we going to start with today when it comes to AI?
Yep. So I've got a few different topics here today, but Celigo AI in general has been exciting to use for me, especially. I help out a lot in the community, so it's been nice to have use cases and stuff to actually test it out, and it's been pretty good so far. But the first one I'm going to go to is AI resource summary and descriptions. So, a lot of times when you build out flows, or even if you're scripting different things, right, you have a tendency to maybe not add notes and comments into your code or into your flows. So what we've done is actually bring AI into adding descriptions and summaries for your flows and resources. So if you ever get handed off like, a flow from a partner, or somebody internally has built a flow that you're not sure exactly what it does and they haven't put notes on it, what we've done is bring AI to kind of give you a summary and a description of what exactly that flow is doing. So if I flip over to a demo, I'll just kind of showcase this real quick. Sorry, new platform. So I've got to unshare and reshare. There we go. Okay, so first off, I've got a list of different flows I'm going to be showing in our update today. But the first one here is a flow that is, if you're looking at it off the bat, you can see that it's syncing Shopify orders, creating customers, creating sales orders. And then if there's an error, right, it's going to send that error message to Slack in this case. But let's say you're maybe a newer user or a partner handed this off to you, and maybe these titles of these export and import lookup bubbles aren't exactly descript, so you're not exactly sure what it's doing. You can come up to this flow description field, and then you've got this Celigo AI generated summary and description. Now I already have one here, but if I click refresh, it'll rebuild the summary and description for me. Additionally, you can have your own description, your own user-defined description up in the top here as well. So you'll see the summary being made is, this flow is designed to sync Shopify orders to NetSuite sales orders. And then it goes into, what the export steps are. The unsuccessful branch will send error messages to Slack channel, right? So in general, it just gives you an overview of what that flow is doing. So we find this super beneficial for especially handoff, or if you have team members that leave the company for whatever reason, right? You can know what your flows are doing. And then the second one I want to discuss is Celigo AI's code assistant. So this is where, throughout Celigo, right, you've got various places you can use scripting languages. You can use JavaScript. So you've got, transform scripts and filter scripts and pre-save page scripts, pre-maps, post-maps, right? A lot of different places that you can use scripts. And scripts are really beneficial for complex scenarios that you come up with. So, scenarios where you need to transform the data in a particular way, or filter in a particular way that isn't that you can't do right with the general UI tools that are given to you. So scripts are really beneficial in those ways. So I wanted to bring you to a use case here that actually came up in one of the community posts that I thought was pretty interesting. Let me share again. Sorry about that. Find my tab here. There we go. Okay, so if I come down to this flow I've built out to demo the code assistant, I've just got a simple, get a text file or CSV file from AWS S3 bucket and sending it to some generic endpoint. In this case, my CSV file is actually, it kind of looks like, I've got unnamed columns. My column 0 is actually a SKU. So what I've done is grouped those records together by column 0 because I want all of the data for a particular SKU grouped together. And then I've got different divisions and inventory levels. So each division has its own inventory level for that SKU. And you can see, right, this data is a little difficult to work with. And you almost need to pivot it out. So like if you had this in Excel, you would probably pivot this out to have divisions and inventories on their own columns or rows. So what I've done is actually used Celigo AI to transform the data. So you can see what I've already got here, but if I just delete what I had and then put in just the sample stub, I'll just start off with, right, column 0 is SKU, column 1, if I could spell, column 1 is division, column 2 is inventory. Then basically what I'm going to ask it is to kind of create the structure that I want. So the prompt, and this might take a couple prompts or hopefully ideally the first prompt that you've got, but the prompt that I've come up with for this scenario is to format me an output that looks like SKU with its value and then division with its inventory number. And so if I click enter on that prompt, I get this output of this transform script. And when I preview, right, I've got my SKU with each division and its inventory level next to it. Right, so this is a really easy way to use Celigo AI to transform your data in any way you need. And it might take a few prompts to get through, just like you guys are used to with prompting AI in general. But as your prompts get better, right, your output of your prompt will be better. And lastly, the last thing on Celigo AI that I wanted to show is AutoMapper. So we've historically had AutoMapper on Mapper 1.0, but with Mapper 2.0, we've brought that same functionality, but enhanced it more using OpenAI's and ChatGPT's technology. So we've got AutoMapper in here. Whenever you have your destination fields populated, we can auto map those to the input record that you've got coming from a various source application. So this helps you start off, easily. If you've got, an endpoint that you're going to that you have to map in 50 different fields, right? You can populate those destination fields in and then have us auto map those fields. And at that point, you're really just validating, is everything mapped correctly? Or maybe changing things if it's not mapped correctly, or deleting things that you actually don't need mapped. So if I showcase that real quick here, the example I'm going to go through is with Snowflake. So I actually have a export from NetSuite via NetSuite JDBC connector. So I'm getting transactions from NetSuite, and I want to insert that data into Snowflake. So in my Snowflake step, right, I've selected my table that I want to go to. In this case, NetSuite JDBC transactions. And then on my mapper, I'll delete my mappings here and kind of start from scratch. But okay, so I've got my fields already mapped here, but if I just wipe them all out, right, I might add in my destination fields. So I've got, actually I can auto populate my destination fields here. And you'll see now I've got created date ID and tran ID that are on my table in Snowflake. But you can see I don't have my source fields mapped yet. So what I can do is come down to Celigo AI and auto map all fields. And it'll go through your source input and try and find fields that relate right to those columns that you have in your Snowflake table. So you can see it got created date correct, ID and tran ID correct. And when you preview it, I've got the correct output. So this is kind of the first iteration of Celigo AI and AutoMapper. We're looking to bring additional stuff into it in the future, but this should work out pretty well for most people. And back to you, Dave.
All right, so we're talking about Flow Builder. Next slide. All right. So our objective here really is to provide you with new features to simplify the process of designing, building, testing, and modification of your integrations, and accelerate time to value with resources to enable builders to leverage best practices and better align integration development with business objectives. So Tyler, what's new in Flow Builder?
Yep. So probably the largest change that we've got in Flow Builder for the winter update is Transformation 2.0. So we released Mapper 2.0 maybe a year and a half ago at this point. And so we've essentially brought the same functionality of Mapper 2.0 to our transformations. So historically, transformations were pretty limited in their functionality of you being able to either just modify single fields that needed to be modified, or to completely restructure the data that you wanted. So if you're familiar with Mapper 2.0, Transformation 2.0 will be very familiar to you. So if I flip over to just a quick, flip over to a demo real quick. All right. So in Transformation 2.0, I've got a simple Safe Search export from NetSuite. You can see in my Safe Search, I'm exporting transactions, and I'm actually grouping these rows together. So, I want to keep all of my transaction lines together, grouped to the transaction header. You can see my output is a rows array of my transaction lines, because that's how the output on a Safe Search is. But right, I've got my header data kind of repeating multiple times, right? My ID, my record type, my internal ID. And really, I kind of want to restructure this a little bit to have my header fields not be repeating, but then have my line fields be within their own array. So what I'm going to do is come to transformation. So if you click this plus sign, you'll have this transform option. And I've already got some transforms made here, right? But if you flip back to 1.0, you might remember it's a kind of a one-to-one mapping where you'd have to specify all of your array paths, and your stars would be your arrays that you're specifying. So Rules 2.0 brings a lot more functionality here. So you can see, right, I've got document number, date, type, and then I've got this lines array that I'm creating. And what I've done is actually create an output record from my input. I could just modify rows. So if I wanted to keep the entire structure from my source the same, but only modify maybe one or a few fields or whatever you want to modify, it'll keep everything the same except for the ones that you modify. But in this case, I want to completely restructure that record coming from this export here. So if I preview, right now I've got one single object as opposed to an array of records or array of rows. And I've got document number, data, type, and then a lines array. So this structurally just makes more sense to visually look at. You've got your header fields and then your line fields within its own array. But of course, you can do this a ton of different ways. This is just kind of the example I've shown off, but it's very powerful in that you can change data types, use handlebar expressions wherever you need, set default values. So it's very helpful for completely transforming your data along the way. Next thing I wanted to go through is handlebar auto suggestion. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have used Excel in the past. This is kind of similar in that, when you're typing out a formula, it's guiding you through the formula. Historically, whenever you've built out a handlebar, the entire handlebar expression would be placed in your editor. But here we're actually going to be guiding you through the creation of that handlebar expression, as opposed to placing it and then having to go back and then, flip out values, copy paste where you need. So if I go into showing you that real quick, this looks like. So I'm just in the developer playground here. I've got a resource input on the right or in the middle here. And I've got this date created field that I want to modify. So you can see I've got a long string date, but really I just want the year output, or I want to convert it from a date time format to just a date format. So historically, right, you would have this entire output here placed on your screen, and you'd have to come back here and modify what you need. You'd have to come back here and modify what you need. But what we've done is, as I type, right, I get these suggestions on what's available. So I've got different handlebar expressions that are available. I've got fields that are available that I can map to or use within that handlebar expression. So as I start typing, things start to filter down. So I've got date format. That's the one I want here. If I use date format, now you can see it's looking for an output format. So how do I want to output this date? I'm just going to do a simple date format. And I go to the next field, which is which field do I want to format, and that would be date created. And you can see again it filters more, so I can click date created. And then my input format, I'll have to type in as the format that this date is currently in. So it's month, day. There we go. And then I can preview, right? And then I get that date. So really it's helping you guide you through handlebar expressions and give you, helpers for those handlebar expressions without having to go into the handlebar guide in a separate knowledge base article. That way you just stay in one place. You don't have to reference the guide as much because all of the context is given to you within those handlebar editors. And then next up, I wanted to showcase, let's see here. Yep. So next up is just enhancements to debug flows in test mode. So last year we released test mode where you can essentially run a flow when it's not on. And then whenever you run that flow, you can see in every single piece of the flow the different inputs and outputs that happened along the way. So if you had an input filter or an output filter, you'd be able to see if something was filtered out correctly or not filtered out correctly. You'd be able to see if your script successfully ran on a particular record and what the output of that script was. So all along the way, you can see your results for particular records running through test mode. So what we've enhanced here is the ability to view those results for NetSuite suite scripts, suite script hooks that you're calling from your flows. Additionally, a populate stub option where you can populate the mock output data and mock response data with actual real preview data. When that mock data is populated right, your flows will preview with that, and your flows will run with that mock data. That's beneficial when you have different test scenarios that you want to go through, right? Different mock data to run through various different tests as you're building your flow out. And then just some additional UX enhancements, especially for like the filtering. So if something was successfully and that we ignored it because that's what the input rule that you had set up was, or for branching, stuff like that. And then lastly, some flow debugger enhancements. This is around the scripts that you have within your flows. We have a new field available for test mode true or false. That way you can have scripts that are running that only run during test mode or not, right? So a lot of times you might have things that maybe you only want to run during test mode that you don't want to run when it actually runs to, when you actually flip this on to production. Maybe you forget to take that piece of code out of production when you put it through, or you just want that safeguard in place. So what we've given you that field so you can easily filter it on it in your scripts, so that going to production doesn't have an effect if you filtered it out. And back to you, Dave.
All right. So as we talked about before, error management is one of our key areas of differentiation, and we're often acknowledged by analysts that we have unique capabilities here. So I think one of the things that's important is our auto recovery capabilities, and we auto resolve almost 95% of the errors that run through our system. And we've introduced a new category of errors that we can auto resolve, right, Tyler?
Yep. So a big one for a lot of users has been rate limiting errors. So you set your concurrency on your connection, but as you hit rate limits, right, it was still trying to ping up against that concurrency that you set. And then you just ended up with a lot of rate limiting errors. I'd have to go manually change the concurrency of my connection down to, try and stay within my concurrency threshold. So what we've done is bring a new setting on all of your connections for auto recover from rate limiting errors. And this is a field that is auto checked for new connections that are made. Existing connections will continue to work as they were, but you can go to those connections and check this field if you're having rate limiting issues on it. But what this field does is you will set your target concurrency level for the connection, and as we hit rate limiting errors for a particular endpoint, we will actually scale the concurrency on that connection down. So if I set it to 25 initially, but my flow is running and hits rate limiting errors, we'll scale it down to 20, 15, 10, up to the point where it's we're not hitting those errors anymore. Additionally, we will auto retry those errors that we do hit. That way you don't have to come manually go retry that error within the platform. It'll just be auto retried for you, given that we now have a lower concurrency level that we're targeting. And to showcase this, I wanted to just quickly show, this is actually a flow that I had built out for us internally. It's actually a flow that we use to populate employee data in Slack so that users can easily see their managers and their employee titles and their department that they're in. So you can easily go see in Slack who's working where, who their manager is. And we actually pull this from Sage. Sage is what we use internally for HR. So we've got a simple export from Sage and lookups to Slack, and then ultimately updating that user in Slack. And the issue came along, with these various lookups in Slack, right? So I needed the user ID for that Slack user. I needed the manager's ID for that Slack user until I could actually update that user in Slack. And these lookups, right, would be a lot of calls to Slack API that would start running into rate limiting errors. But you'll see once I go into those errors, these were actually already resolved. But you'll see, the error back from Slack was that it was not a good API call because of rate limiting, but it was auto-resolved by Celigo because we had that functionality turned on. So this is super beneficial for you to, not have to come to your flows as often to manage errors because we're auto-handling it for you. Awesome. And then next thing I wanted to go over real quick is tagging of errors. So a lot of users have requested the ability to essentially tag their errors so that they can, if you're working on a multi-member team, you can know who's working on what, or if something like an urgent priority that needs to be fixed, or maybe a particular error needs to go to a certain department or something. So we started off with having the ability to tag errors that you see, with the eventual goal, right, to kind of bring some kind of rules and stuff to this. So the tags, you can go to any error and then tag them with any tags that you have within your account. Showcasing that real quick, what that looks like is, oops, wrong screen. All right, what that looks like is, right, I've got an error here on my flow, and I can have these various tags tagged to that particular error. So I can add new tags, like let's just add a new test tag and then select it. I can clear out my tags, and then you can sort and filter on your tags as well. So if it's under investigating, if I had, maybe dozens of errors here, 100 errors here that were tagged, I could filter those tags to go to a particular tag, right? So filter to investigating, of course, I only have this one error here, so it's only going to show that. But if I go to escalated, there won't be any errors that are escalated. So it's an easy way to cross-functionally work between teams and to tag particular errors, with what the issue was. And then lastly, right, we've brought the ability to sort errors based off of their code, message, source, timestamp. So all the errors that you have within your flow, you can sort it to try and drill down further and find particular errors that you're interested in, or need to export to further look into. I think that's about it, Dave.
All right. So, just a couple of things before we get to the Q&A. Right, as we said in the beginning, this isn't meant to be a total review of everything new and updated in the past couple of releases. The place for that is our Help Center. That's where you'll find the full release notes for every release, with links to additional information on all of those features and updates, and media in most cases on all those topics. You can simply click on the What's New tab at the top of the Help Desk screen, Help Center screen, and go straight there. But release notes are only part of the Help Center. That includes our complete knowledge base, gives you access to technical support. It also includes our community section, which is great if you have a question that's more than just a simple how-to, right? You're thinking about how to approach a unique problem. You're wondering if someone else has tried it. Celigo University is there, where you can, which provides business users and IT developers free online training. You can learn all you need to build, test, and manage integration with live sessions, or accessing on-demand courses. and you can challenge yourself with comprehensive learning paths, and you can achieve all of our certifications. And before, during, or after certification, if you are working on a custom flow, either customizing a template or creating a flow from scratch, you can get extra help during our office hours. They're typically held every week, Tuesdays at 10 a.m. to 11:20 a.m. Pacific time, and you can access the registration form from the help and feedback page in the Help Center. Did I miss anything there, Tyler?
Yep, I think that pretty much covers it.
All right, so final slide. Please, if we're going to do our Q&A, but if at any point you choose to leave, please fill out our survey. That's found on the right side engagement bar before you leave. And so we're really looking forward to your feedback. If you want follow-up from a member of our team, you can click on the request a follow-up button on the very top right, and that will get you to engage with our folks. And I think with that, we're going to start the Q&A, and I'll go from the first questions forward. So during AI, we had a question: if you are dealing with PHI, HIPAA sensitive data, can you turn off AI features?
Yep, you can. So if you go into, let me share real quick. If you go into your profile, you can turn off enable, or you can uncheck enable AI chatbot, and then it would be off for you.
Yeah, I think in maybe just align with that, one thing to remember is we do not store your data. So our AI is not reading your data. Our AI is being trained on flows, and it's being trained on our data and our metadata to understand and be able to provide that kind of guidance and provide those auto descriptors. But it is not your data. So your data, we don't store your data. Your data just resides through the system for the time it takes to be processed, and it is encrypted through all of that. So if that is a concern, we've got that. Here we've got, does it include scripts in its description of flows? So obviously referring to the auto description.
It will include scripts in the description of flows. Right now, if the script is very long, there is a limit on how much metadata we can send to generate that description. So if your script is very long, it might not be able to generate. So we're working on ways that we can make that a little better, but it will work if it's small enough.
Great. Is the AI scripting going to be available for everyone, or is this going to be an additional cost?
Yeah, it is available to everybody. So if you just go into your profile and turn it on, it's available to you right now.
Yeah, I mean, all of our AI features are part of our platform. So this is not a gated feature. This is not an extra cost. This is part of what we are trying to provide to everybody. So excellent there. Okay, I think you kind of answered this before. If you, question just jumped. If you use handling expressions a lot and do not want suggestion helpers, can you turn that off?
Yep. So whenever you start in a handlebar expression editor, if you click escape on your keyboard, you won't have any suggestions again until you click the keyboard shortcut to bring it back up. I don't remember this keyboard shortcut off the top of my head there, but that's how you escape out of the auto suggestions.
And would this also work for NetSuite script execution errors? I think that was asked during the rate limit discussion, but
I would have to check on that. I'm not completely sure. So the way we train our model off of, every API is different, right? And how it returns particular errors for rate limiting. Not everybody uses the standard status code back. It might be part of the message that has to be interpreted as well. So some of it might be training on particularly new errors that should be treated as rate limiting issues. And if you have that come up, right, and you do think that that should be counted kind of as a rate limiting, feel free to raise a support ticket, and somebody can kind of determine, right, whether that should be added into training or not.
Right. Can users set up rules to auto-resolve recurring errors?
So there currently is not like a rules engine, but any import or like any step on your flow can have post submit scripts on them. So what you could do is use Celigo AI to build you a post submit script to ignore certain errors. So if a certain error has, a certain message or code returned, those scripts do allow you to add a ignore true or false field in the output of the script, so that you then are telling us to ignore it and showing you on the front end. So that is the option currently, but you can easily use Celigo AI to build that script for you.
Okay. Is there any way to inspect errors and tag them at runtime, or is the error tagging exclusively a manual admin feature?
That's a good question. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think that there's currently a way. I think it's a manual admin feature. Now we do have APIs available to add the tags. So you could add like some branching logic or something to call back to our API to tag that error that was generated, or have separate flows that pull errors and tag them appropriately. Almost building kind of your own rules engine at that point. But all of our APIs are available to do that. So I would say that's an option for now that you could utilize.
So here's to confirm, these enhancements will not have impacts to current mapping and current functionality, correct?
Correct.
And confirmed. Is Celigo University already updated with training on Mapper 2.0, Transform 2.0, and using AI?
I believe it is. I do know in the help center, though, our CTO actually built out let me pull it up real quick. Our CTO built out a really good video for showcasing Transformation 2.0. So let me pull this up real quick. So if you just come to the Help Center, if you just search for Transformation 2.0, you'll find it. But there's a really good YouTube video here. I think it's about 47 minutes long, but Scott goes into a great detail on the benefits of Transformation 2.0 and exactly how to use it. He was using it quite a bit in his own flows that he's using for generating AI knowledge bases for internal Celigo users to kind of find information from all of our Slack channels and Google Docs and knowledge base articles.
So just to answer, once again, we've had this question a lot. We will be emailing everybody in 24 hours with a link to the recording. So one more question, Tyler. When will the dark mode theme be done?
I'm not completely sure on that. I do know, so we are migrating design systems behind the scenes to really make it easier for us to design new stuff out. So we're moving on to a newer platform there. And so the thought, right, is to, once we're migrated over onto that platform, is to then move into a lot of these design things that would have been more cumbersome on our older system. So I don't have a time frame yet, but that is the plan that we're working on.
All right. Well, we are out of questions. If anybody has a question, ask it now. Oh. Okay, we're just getting a whole lot of thank you, so I'm going to leave it at that. So since everyone's thanking us, I'm going to thank all of you. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your time, sharing your questions, sharing your feedback. Again, if there's something specific, deeper, you want to understand, you can request follow-up. You can always email us as well. You can always engage with us in the Help Center. Tyler, thank you for everything you did for us today. Any last words for the audience?
No, other than have a great day and great weekend coming up.
Okay, thanks. Yes, have a great weekend. Once again, thank you for helping us to become Gartner visionaries. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for being the best customers in the world.